Hey guys, this is Racing Games Channel. Today I'm going to show you a brand new trick that is really only for speedrunning. However, I need to show people how I did this relative to the 218. So you might be wondering, how did I get a 218? Like, if you watch the video, you can see that the load times, like if I bring up the video real quick and go to an end of the race right about here. If you let me pull that on the screen real quick. So if you look, you can see that my load times are basically instantaneous. And you might be like, how the hell did you do that? Because those are usually PSP load times. So this is very complicated and we've got a lot of steps involved. So I'll make sure to specify everything you're going to need. First of all, you are going to need modded PlayStation 2 applications. So usually when you run PC or not PCSX2, you don't need any of this stuff because most of it's done through its own software. However, the way this trick works is we're going to trick our emulator to think it's an actual PlayStation 2 and not run any of the disk. So when you run a game through PCSX2, you have an ISO file. So let me skip that. You can see right here that shows the little disk. These are ISO files of all my copies of the game. If you see down there, you see how that's a gear? That's an ELF file. An ELF file is a PlayStation 2's variant of an EXE. It's the way it executes programs. So, let's get started. First of all, you need a newer version of PCSX2, at least 1.7 newer. I would recommend 2.5 or anything newer, just because it's usually more optimized and it runs a lot better. I also will note that not all games work with this. Your your results may vary, and you might need some pretty heavy duty hardware to do this. It's not going to be like extreme high end, but for me to get 60 FPS on MC3 while still doing this, it does take up a lot of performance. I'm running a 5950X 3080 for context. Anyway, let's get started. First of all, you are going to need a copy of ULaunch ELF, which is a program that is used as a file manager in PC on a PS2, so you can access like the hard drive, memory cards. It allows you to take data off your memory cards if you have a modded PS2, or if you just need to get the data off of it. So normally you wouldn't want to use this on this, and also some versions may not work. Again, it is results may vary. This is very wonky shit, and no one's really done this. So I had to kind of sketch through forums for a very long time to kind of figure out what I'm doing here. It took me about 14, 15 hours of research. Anyway, so very first thing we're going to do, we are going to go to network and hard drive, and you are going to create a hard drive. It does not need 48-bit LBA. You're not going to make a 2 terabyte hard drive or anything insane like that, but you are going to need a hard drive. This works kind of like how a virtual machine does. It doesn't immediately just take 40 gigs of the data at once. It only takes up space with how much space you're putting in it. This is just telling the PlayStation how much space you want in the drive. So you need to set up that and get that all set up and good. Okay. Now that you have your hard drive set, remember this file name, dev9hdd.raw. It's usually what they're going to name it. You're going to need to remember where this is put. Normally, it's put in the main directory of PCSX2. So you can see this is my main directory, and they put it right here. 41 gig file. So, you made a hard drive. Congratulations. That does nothing on its own. However, if you use a normal PlayStation 2 and you've modded a PS2, you know exactly where this is going to go. So, next thing you're going to make a new memory card, but you want to make it a folder type memory card. You don't want to use it as a normal like 8 meg card like I normally do. You want to make a folder. We're not going to make one here because you can see I have this folder and then a convert, which will be the next part. I will be giving out the file. I will put a Google Drive link with the program, or not the program, but with the CHT file that you'll need. And each game is going to require its own CHTs. Again, this is kind of telling you the baseline of how to get it to work. I've only got an MC3 to work. It should work with other files in theory, but it's a bit of a mess. So You can see I got these three here. This is Midnight Club MCSR, Midnight Club 2, and Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition Remix. If I launch this, oh yeah, that's another thing. Notepad++ is very important for this because it allows you to read it and actively edit it in a way that makes sense. So I'll add a link to Notepad++ as well. So you can see 213.55.cht. That's how the game reads its ID. This code set, I'll link this in the description. So you can see the way this normally works. You can see there's two lines. There's your enabler. You got your widescreen patch, 60 FPS, and then you have your GPU info, which you can disable if you want. I only did it so it could show FPS, which is why if you look at my recording, you could see this here. This normally doesn't show up. This is part of debug stuff. That only shows up because I have this thing here, and disable motion blur because motion blur makes me kind of nauseous playing this game. So this is all stuff that you need, and that will be in the description. So you make this file, and then what you want to do is you want to make a save game, because I don't know why. Don't ask. This is weird shit that I had to fuck around with. So in this case for Midnight Club 3, you don't need to use Midnight Club 3. We're just going to use it as a context because if we're already making this for MC3, it kind of makes sense to just stay on the same track. So what we'll do is we'll just make an MC3 save file. Don't worry, this is pre-cache. I crammed this into RAM. It was originally for speedrun reasons. Let me just turn the audio off real quick. So so what you want to do is you want to just make a save file. You don't really need to make anything crazy. Just go in here, go into game options, go to save profile, and then just save the file. In my case, I'm not going to do that because that'll fuck up with what's currently in the file. So, once you've made your save file, you don't need the game anymore. You can just shut that off for now. When you go into your folder, you're going to see this here, BASLUS 21355. This is Midnight Club 3. Don't mind this. We'll delete this for context. We'll delete it for getting rid of confusion's sake. But you can see right here, this was originally a CHT file. You may notice it's an ICO now. Don't ask me why, because I don't get it. But ULaunch Elf is a little weird, so I'll go into that in a minute. Now, what you're going to need to do is you're going to have to grab a copy of HD Loader. Normally, this is a software that allows you to install PS2 DVDs or ISOs onto your hard drive and then have them show up. I will make a quick warning. If you intend to make multiple games, or intend to use this for multiple games, like, for example, they don't have a patch and you just want to get it faster load times, that's fine. You're going to have to format this every single time. So you better be careful about this because this is painfully tedious on some games. Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition. Any dual layer DVD takes forever, but CD games don't take too long. So now what you want to do, go to install. It's going to ask you to insert a disk. You go in from game list. It's the easier way to do it. You click Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition Remix. Give it a second. It's going to reinsert the memory card. Then you click continue. It's going to find the game. And then what you do, you just make it a name. You don't really have to do anything weird. I just do MC3 so I know what I'm looking at. And this is going to take a long time. Absolutely use your turbo feature on your emulator. Or don't use turbo. Press F4 to remove your frame limiter. You can see I went from 60 FPS to 1090 FPS. We'll be back because this is going to take roughly 15 minutes. Alright, I'm back. You might see why you might be asking why there's like 8 games on here. This might give you a bit of a sneak peek on what games I intend to speedrun for the channel, because these are all ones that are going to be running on the channel again. Anyway, now that you've made all these discs, I'm going to tell you a quick warning. You can't redo this. So if you do this again, you go back into HD Loader, it's going to automatically format every time. So make sure you get all the games you want to do this with in one fell swoop. even if it doesn't work, you're better off having it not work and then trying to fuck with it later than having to do this every time. And this took me 30 minutes. So now that we've done all of this loading, we've had all the games on our drive. Highly recommend you just eject the disk. So that's all good. Now you shut down. After you know you've gotten every game you want on here, you shut it down. You launch OPL. This is version OPL 1.1. The reason why we're doing this first, even though we didn't put the cheat file in, I'll explain in a second. You have to have the game show up, which they do, and you can see right here. All the games are here. So if your game doesn't require any form of any form of like cheat code or any of that stuff, you're done. You could just, let's say for Need for Speed Opera 2, you don't have a cheat, just press X. It's going to say that because I have cheats selected for every game. I'll have to select it per each. But you can see, and there you go. Need for Speed Opera 2. It just works. So now, if you want to run games through this system, you want to make sure you launch them through OPL instead of going through the menu. So this game's done. There's nothing I could add here. I might be able to tweak it, make it perform a little bit better, but we can get there when we get there. It'll be on an individual basis. That's also a quick little warning. If you are running stuff through OPL, it's a lot harder to run because you don't get any of the optimizations. However, if you have a powerful enough computer, you can set your settings based on you'll have to set it basically on which game. So, for example, Midnight Club 3, don't run it on anything other than software render. It doesn't run at all. It runs at like 30 FPS, and it's unplayable. So, and then, for example, Need for Speed 2, I could probably render that. So you just select that for whenever time you need it. But don't use global settings. It will cause problems. Okay, now that we've seen that OPL works, you launch ELF. You launch ELF, I recommend just putting it in your main directory of your emulator. I recommend putting all the programs, all your cheat files, all that stuff in here because it just makes it easier for you to access it later. Run boot.elf. Some people have had issues, or some of my friends have had issues trying to get this to work, but you can see you launch ELF version 4.43 alpha. You go into file browser. So this is the important part. So you remember when we made the modified memory, we made the folder and we put the file in. When you go into it, your files are going to look like this. You're going to have these files here in a folder called BASLUS 21355TST. That's your save file, and then your superblock is your format. So this right here is going to be your save file for the game. So you don't want to mess with this. Like this right here is your save file. So you don't want to touch this stuff. Like this is the icon that it gives you through the PS3 menu, and then you got your system folders, all that stuff. So what you want to do is you want to add a file, but you don't want to add the CHT as a CHT. You want to add it as an ICO. And why? Because there's a weird glitch, and this is I've tested this like 5 or 6 times. If you run it without, it doesn't work at all. Oh, I didn't convert the new file. Whatever. You can see the 200.63. That's for Midnight Club Street Racing. I'm actively trying to get a patch to work for that. So what you do is you press R1. You go and press circle to copy. Remember, this is going to use Japanese controls. So expect X for back, circle to accept. You go up. You go into hard drive HDD 0. OPL. CHT. Then what you do is you're going to paste that SLUS file in. And then what you're going to do is you're going to rename it using R1 to adjust yourself, X to delete. You're going to press CHT. Click OK. Now, if we go back into the folder, you can see that all these files, you can see the widescreen patch, the enabler, 60 FPS, motion blur, and the GPU info are all enabled. And you saw that they weren't in this folder before. So you back all the way out. You now shut this down. You go back into PlayStation. You go into OPL. You press circle. You press X on settings. Make sure you go down to HDD device start mode. Go to auto. Press OK. Press circle. Now you're into your games. So everything else is going to work the way it does. So now you press triangle on the game you want to modify, and it's going to show up on the top center. You click cheat settings. You want to make sure that you have it. I want to have it per game because it makes my life a little easier. Per game. you want to set it on auto select cheats. If you set everything correctly, you want to save it to that memory card, that little cheat memory card. I recommend making a brand new memory card for this, so you can have a folder and then a memory card you can just keep deleting if you need to, and just keep converting it back. All right, now we press X to chest. See how it didn't give me any warnings? That's a good sign. And you can see right here, let me go into audio. And you can see right here, 60 hertz, showing refresh rate, and yeah, game's running at 60 FPS. You can tell by just looking at it. And that's how you set up 60 FPS OPL on emulator. And I'll show you guys the improvement. Let me just quickly load right in. You can see the load times are instant. Watch out! And then I can just go to Garage, and you can see it's as fast as my emulator time, or my speedrun. And there you go. You now have improved load times, which this could be improved for any game that uses RTA-based speedruns. So any game that has an RTA that is allowing of OPL, you should use OPL as long as it works. However, this might make it more difficult, because what might happen is people might start setting up OPL to work with these emulators, and if they do, that means you're going to have tighter tolerances. So, now with this information now out, you can start speedrunning via OPL. If you guys like this kind of content, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next speedrun.